It's time to clean the winter blues out of your house. You should really check out Greenland Pro Cleaning. They're locally owned in Asheville, they're eco-friendly, allergy-friendly, and they only use products certified by the EPA. Greenland Pro Cleaning has easy online booking, and you can get a quote in under a minute. Use the code OVERLOOK at checkout and get $60 off your first cleaning. Cross spring cleaning off your to-do list by visiting greenlandprocleaning.com today. You can't just have a TV and stereo anymore. Now they're part of fully automated, energy-efficient smart homes. The good news, if you live in or around Asheville, Robbie Matrani of REM Audio and Video has you covered. REM offers an array of sound, video, lighting, security, and network services, all controllable at your fingertips from anywhere. REM is a registered dealer for all the major brands and can customize a plan for any budget. Get a free quote by reaching out at remAudiovideo.com.
I am a maker, a builder, a baker, although sometimes my messes are all that you'll find. I'll tell a story, both true and allegory. Oh, the process is precious, so it takes up all my time.
Asheville's Parks and Recreation Department is asking for the public's voice in shaping a comprehensive plan that will guide its decisions for the next 10 to 15 years. Personally, I'd like to see an acre or two of Richmond Hill Park fenced as an off-leash dog park. I asked my guest about that and a lot more.
The feedback that we get from citizens is the guiding factor, right? It's part of the equation of what investment, what programs we offer, how we make decisions on the future of Asheville Parks and Rec.
This is The Overlook with Matt Peiken, a podcast about the news, arts, issues, and trends of Asheville. Tyrell McGirt says his career path was blazed as a 10-year-old in Greensboro when his mother signed him up for a lifeguarding class. He ran parks and recreation departments in Alabama, Arizona, and Alaska before moving 2 years ago to lead the department in Asheville. In this conversation, we get into issues such as the recent decision to keep Malvern Hills Park Pool closed this year, and balancing the needs of pickleballers and tennis players. We also talk equity, tracking park usage, and his advocacy for parks and recreation in a city budget stretched to meet myriad other needs. And yes, McGirt has a response to my dog park query. I began our conversation by asking about his entree into a career in parks and recreation.
What led me to the work is my mom coming home one day and asking, hey, do you want to be a lifeguard this summer? And before I could say, yeah, I could do that, or no, she said, I signed you up for the next lifeguarding class. Go ahead and get prepared. So I worked part-time in Parks and Rec in high school and college, and found myself working full-time once I graduated college for the local YWCA in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it just took off from there.
When you came in as director and you looked at the city budget, did you think, oh, this is a healthy budget for a city this size? Or did you think, oh, we've got some challenges here? What was your perspective, your assessment of where City of Asheville sat with its budget in relation to the city's parks and recreation needs and responsibilities?
It's kind of hard to assess everything that needs to happen. Certainly, I can eyeball things. So as I was going through the interview process, I was able to look and see that we have a lot of aging infrastructure facilities, but until you're in it, it's hard to do an assessment. So from the outside, it looked like a healthy budget. It looks like we are where we should be in terms of allocations. We have a healthy number of staff that we invest in to maintain our park properties and deliver the services that we do. But yeah, now that I'm in it, I've recognized that a lot of the aging infrastructure that I was eyeballing and seeing when I came in during the interview process, all of those things need attention. And it's going to take money to get them up to speed and operating like we would like a community center to operate in the city.
I guess the facility that probably has the most recent headlines is the Malvern Hills Pool. Talk about that a little bit. So it's a 90-year-old pool, and you and your colleagues decided it could not open this coming season because it needs repairs that just weren't going to be able to take place in time?
Exactly. It couldn't take place in time, and it is a huge investment in a property that is 90 years old, and we don't know what other problems may be unveiled if we start making the things that we know that need to be improved. So yes, the staff, we made a tough decision to not open the pool this summer and to utilize our current comprehensive plan to guide what further investment or decisions we make in Malvern Hills Park will be.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because from the outside looking in, a pool doesn't seem to be a very complicated structure that you would think, oh, just some caulking, re-cementing. It wouldn't seem like it would be that major of an undertaking. You talk about the age of it playing a big role. Give us a breakdown of what made the Malvern Hills Pool and makes it such a challenging reconstruction or renovation.
If you throw enough money at any problem, it's not an issue. It's deciding if you want to invest that type of money. The things that we know are an issue, specifically with the Malvern Hills Pool, is we know we have to have the sump drains replaced. That is something that we can't even function or operate unless those are redone. And that kind of prevents entrapment and people from drowning. We know that we have to have the fresh water returns redone and completely replaced. That prevents disease transmission. We know the plaster of the pool across the entire pool bottom has to be redone. We don't want people utilizing the space and getting cut. And that's something that we've done patchwork on over the years. But we're at the point now where it just needs to be completely redone. And then the electrical bonding portion of the pool, we're dealing with a 90-year-old pool. Anytime we go in now and have anything retrofitted to bring the pool up to code, you have to look at that electrical bonding, and the other things are prompting major impacts. And so now we're at the point where the electrical bonding has to happen with the pool also. You
mentioned that you throw enough money at anything, you can fix it. What are you looking at in terms of the total cost of this?
Yeah, so with those things that we know that need to happen right now in order to open the pool safely, it's estimated at $400,000.
On the surface of it, $400,000 in the scope of a city budget seems, that's a rounding error in some ways, and that amount of money. I guess it's all perspective. Talk about the challenges on your department's budget. You said the tough decisions you had to make. What did you weigh that against? The $400,000 that would be spent on those repairs versus where is that money going?
Yeah, so we know at this point, those funds have not been budgeted for. We set aside some money for pools every year to make some of the minor repairs, but not to the tune of $400,000, which creates a major capital project. We know at this point, this is roughly how much it's going to cost, and I think our bids came in between $350 and $400, a little over $400. We know that if we were to move forward with anything, then something else would not happen within our operations and our system. Something else will have to be cut. And when you weigh a pool that is open 3 months out of the year, roughly, compared to a community center that also needs repairs, that is open year round and is servicing more people, that's the tough decision that has to be made. And so the decision not to open the pool, those are the things that we're looking at. Operationally, the people that we're serving.
How many pools are under the umbrella of City Parks and Rec?
3 pools and 1 splash pad.
Wow. For a city of 90,000 people, that doesn't sound like a lot. But you give me perspective. I don't know. Does that seem like a per capita, like we're pretty well resourced that way?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things we're finding out from the comp plan is we're pretty evenly matched. We're benchmarking ourselves against other like communities, and we're finding a couple pools for a city our size tends to be what other communities are dealing with also.
So to put this issue to bed for now, will these renovations happen before 2025 season?
Decision has been made yet.
Wow. So costs only go up. Is there a possibility this pool may never reopen?
We don't know yet. It would be premature to say, especially in the absence of having a completed comprehensive plan, which is the document that we're really using to guide what our further investments will be.
Going on the topic of under-resourced, I had a number of months ago, I had pickleball people in here and tennis people. And I did an episode of my show, Pickleball versus Tennis. And apparently, one thing that both sides agree on is that they believe we need dedicated pickleball courts in the city of Asheville. From what I understand, there are only 11 tennis courts in the city of Asheville. To me, that also seems, wow, we are under-resourced there. What's your take on the needs of the pickleball community and the needs of the tennis community and how the city is meeting it or needs to meet it?
I think they're right. It would be awesome to live in a community where we had those dedicated recreation spaces. As Parks and Rec professionals, we want it all. We want to be able to have shining new tennis centers and dedicated pickleball courts for citizens that live and work here in Asheville. But the reality is just much different. I think what we've come up with in the interim, shared space between the tennis community and the pickleball community, is something that works for us. Understanding that we have 11 outdoor tennis courts and being able to double that in number by putting pickleball lines on it is ideal. We do the same thing with our gym spaces. We would never build a gymnasium and not line it with volleyball courts or any other sport court that we can get out of that space. So one of the things we try to do is figure out how we can maximize spaces and facilities and resources because we're serving the greater good.
One of the things that both those communities told me is that from what their understanding is from the city, that there isn't really land available, readily available, given other needs of this community, chiefly housing, to open new courts. Is that your take on that as well, that given Asheville's demands for housing, other land demands, that this is the space we have and this is what we're going to have to make best use of going forward, no matter how this city's population grows?
Yeah, there are a number of opportunities, and certainly the needs that we are experiencing within the Parks and Rec is just one department. There's certainly other city departments that are experiencing other challenges, and our city leadership and city council have to make tough decisions on what gets invested in. Land-wise, I think there's some things we could probably look at and do, but the investment tends to be the biggest challenge.
Do you perceive a role for the Parks and Recreation Department director, for you as director, to play an advocacy role for the growth and health of parks and recreation services in this city with city leaders, making the case for certain needs?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, as Parks and Rec professionals, we want to conserve and preserve all things recreation and scope. So, yes, if it touches what we do in terms of providing healthy options for people to get involved, engaged, active, moving, we're all about it all day long. And we advocate for all of those things to happen within a system.
Do you have a sense, or does your department track usage of city parks about whether certain parks are heavily used or underused? Is that something that your department tracks?
We haven't done a good job of tracking it in the past. Moving forward, yes. It is one of the goals to do a better job of tracking those numbers year in, year out. And from the comp plan, we're realizing we're getting some numbers that'll give us a better idea of how parks are used, who's using them, how far people are traveling, et cetera.
Why is that important to know about which parks are seeing more use than others?
So we know how to properly maintain them. We know what to invest in. We can predict what's coming down the pipe. And we have a better understanding of user groups, how people are utilizing parks, and that dictates what we build more of.
There are two parks in this city, and you can correct me if I'm missing more than this, but two parks in this city that seem heavily used and have multi-uses, I think, that do a great job of addressing certain needs. One is Richmond Hills Park, and the other is Carrier Park. And both seem demanding to me in some ways because there's multiple uses in each park. At Richmond Hill, you've got the disc golf course, you've got trails that are used by runners, cyclists, you've got a dedicated mountain bike area. Are there other needs, or how is City Parks and Rec addressing what's happening at Richmond Hill? Are there more plans to expand the park or expand services and programming at that park?
Yeah, Richmond Hill is a good example of how partnerships work. So we have the disc golf and the the mountain bike trails out there because of partnerships that we have with nonprofits in the community, namely Western North Carolina Disc Golf Association and Piscataway. They're the ones who are putting in the disc golf courses and the trails, both pedestrian and cyclists. So that's a good example of building up momentum, building up more activity in the park to the point where we now have a nice parking lot up there. We have a restroom area, a shelter area, because the area is just getting a lot of attention and it's popular.
More after this. In her youth, Anna Sagel saw herself as a hippie child, but as she bounced around Europe with her parents, she unwittingly developed the sensibilities that have paved her career.
I flew down to Guatemala with $1,000 in my pocket and traveled on the bus. Basically, it started with all Guatemalan merchandise, shirts, backpacks, belts, hacky sacks, you name it, all things bright and beautiful. And that was the beginning of Ad Lib.
Sagel opened Ad Lib Clothing 35 years ago in Boone and moved her boutique to Asheville at a time when there wasn't much else downtown.
Trends come and go. I feel like my customer wants clothes that she is going to enjoy today and they're going to last and she will enjoy them for years to come.
Drop into Ad Lib Clothing on Haywood Street, celebrate the shop's anniversary all through April, and find out why Anna Sagel isn't slowing down, even after 35 years.
It still amazes me that Ad Lib has become my life and that it has brought so much joy to so many women, and ad libbing it has worked for me.
Is there any talk of having, in that park specifically, a dedicated dog park? I know a lot of people bring their dogs there. I used to. Now it's overrun, and I don't bring my dogs there anymore. It's one of the few forested areas in this city that maybe could have a portion of it dedicated as a dog park, an off-leash park that makes use of the forest, particularly in the back area, on the Red Trail area. I thought, wow, what a great area if we just had 2 acres here for a dog park. Any talk or momentum for that?
No talk or momentum at this time.
I'm starting talk on that. That's funny to me that there isn't more of lobbying happening to get a dedicated dog park. Are there dedicated dog parks? I know there's one at French Broad River Park. Are there others that are under the city purview?
And we have one over near Recreation Park, Azalea Park.
Azalea Park. Okay, I haven't been to that one. And you haven't heard from people like, we need more dog parks?
Not at Richmond Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, people say they would like more dog parks, yes. Not specifically at Richmond Hill.
Gotcha. Are there areas of the city that are pinpointed as sorely needing that?
No area of the city has been pinpointed at this point. We know that people are asking for it, but I'll be honest with you, our focus and concentration is on maintaining what we currently have. I've talked earlier about the infrastructure needs. We see what's happening at Malvern Hills Pool. I've talked about the community centers needing a lot of attention and some of our park spaces. Part of what we want to get out of the comprehensive plan, Recreate Asheville, is realistic strategic plan to maintain our current infrastructure. That's where our focus currently is.
So the comprehensive plan, it's completed or is it developing?
It's developing.
It is. What's the timeline for this plan and what informs this comprehensive plan?
The timeline is to have it done by this summer. We're hoping to have a complete project that we can push out, share, and start strategizing over what next steps would be in terms of investments, priority projects, what are some of those short-term, long-term goals that we're going to have for the Asheville Parks and Recreation System.
So the comprehensive plan, will it get pretty granular for specific? No, it won't. It's more higher philosophy.
Yes, higher level with some details and strategies that we can move forward with.
Okay.
Immediately.
Let's talk about Carrier Park. That to me seems the most used. It's the largest park in our system, if I'm not correct on that. Tell
Active
me.
Park.
Active Park. Well, is there another one that's larger?
Richmond Hill.
Oh, I guess.
Land-wise.
Gotcha. Carrier Park it's a multi-use park. Everything from softball, soccer, running, a velodrome. Are there areas of the park that you've got infrastructure for that aren't being used very much? Like I noticed there's one, I don't even know what it's for. You've got this area that has, it looks like it could be for bocce ball or something. It's lawn bowling. Who's lawn bowling? I've not seen any. Are there lawn bowling? You're giving me a wide-eyed look. Yeah. So there is lawn bowling happening out there. Okay, and I've seen yoga happening there when there isn't lawn bowling. Tell me, what has picked up in the park? And I know you told me a little bit before, you have not done a use study to see what's being used a lot or less so. Carrier Park, do you have a sense that all of our features there are being used well, or is there talk of this is less used, maybe we need to do something about this?
Yeah, our open space is used. Volleyball is growing, so volleyball spaces have expanded beyond the sand volleyball areas. So any of the open spaces that exist out there, the volleyballers will tell you they want all of that space.
Anybody who uses anything will tell you that this is our space, right?
Exactly.
Is Carrier Park, because it's so vast and has multi-uses, is it easy for the city to say, we don't need those features elsewhere in the city because it exists at Carrier Park? Are there need for softball, volleyball elsewhere in the city that we don't have?
It's hard to answer that question. I would say it would be nice to have those things spread out throughout town and try to provide them close to where people are. I don't know how realistic that is. Again, one of the things we're hoping to get from the comp plan is where investment should be made based on user group and feedback that we've heard. One of the things that we try to do is make sure we engage with all of our stakeholder groups. So that included our athletic associations, our nonprofits, anyone that we partnered with in the past to get their input and feedback on what they'd like to see in our comprehensive system.
I guess one of the question that just came to mind, I hadn't even thought about this before, is about access to these parks, about people's ability to get there, whether bus lines go there or there's other transportation outlets that make it easy for people to get from one side of the city to the other to access these facilities. And when the city only has 2 pools and a splash area, the ability to get there is more paramount, right?
Exactly, but it's also, you have different types of parks and different types of recreation amenities. Something like a Carrier Park is considered a community park or a regional park, and these are park spaces where we know people are going to travel some distance to get to because of the amount of active activity that is happening in those parks. And then you have pocket parks, something like we would see downtown, or neighborhood parks, which typically have a playground, open space, maybe a ball field, because Asheville's infrastructure is a little bit older. So you have these different types of parks. And what we're trying to do is make sense out of what types of investment should be made, where there are gaps. We know equity is a huge issue, so making sure that communities that are underserved historically get those proper investments also.
Talking about pocket parks, that is a relatively recent development in cities, right? That they weren't really thinking about this 20 years ago, turning 2 parking spaces into a parklet. We have a couple of those downtown, correct? That your department oversees.
Yes.
Talk about those. And what's the reason behind having such tiny public parks? So
downtown area is an urban space, and anytime you can have a green space in an urban area or a highly dense area in a form of a park is welcome. So a lot of places, Asheville included, have developed what we call pocket parks. It's just a small area, a shaded area, it's a seated area where people can stop, rest.
But am I correct in that that wasn't a function or feature that cities were thinking about a couple of decades ago?
Yes, it's always been a feature, but what you're seeing is the emergence of it. It's become more popular, and people recognize the importance of having open space park spaces in various forms throughout their systems.
Even though it existed before, why do you think it's only relatively recently become more a topic du jour, that it's more top of mind now than before? What do you think's happened?
I think people value the amenity of having a park. I think it's top of mind for a lot more people now, and people are living and working where they live. So if you're in an urban space or a highly dense space, a pocket park may be your closest nearby park. So people are recognizing, I think, now that having these spaces closer to where I live and work is an asset.
Speaking of small parks, Pritchard Park. It is an iconic park in the city of Asheville. Talk about the uses there, what happens there. It's a high congregation area. You've got the Friday drum circles. What is the advantage of managing the needs of Pritchard Park?
Yeah, Pritchard Park is one of those high use areas for us within the Asheville Park system. It's located in downtown. We know tourism is really big here, and it's located in an area that's already attracting a lot of people. And it's an area that we want to program. You mentioned the drum circle. There have been art shows. There are a number of things that we're doing within the park in order to program and activate it, hopefully keep out any behavior that's unwanted, and make the area just a more welcoming place.
Talk about the programming there beyond the drum circle. I think that's what most people associate with Pritchard Park. What are some other programs that the city has brought into the park to activate the space?
We actually don't program that space. We partner with Downtown Asheville Association. They do a lot of the programming. They will present to us a list of calendar activities that they want to host. We review it, work together, and then they are the ones who are actually programming the space. And then our staff are the ones that are just maintaining it and keeping the maintenance.
I see. Is there an opportunity with any of your city parks for community nonprofits, other entities to propose ideas?
Always.
Talk about that. Is that something that people generally don't take advantage of, that there's this resource that they can program and try to bring events to the parks? Or is that something that happens a lot in the city?
That happens a lot in our downtown parks. Pritchard Park, Pack Square, Triangle Park to a lesser extent. These are areas located downtown that are constantly being activated and programmed with nonprofits, different festivals, people coming to town, people that live here. So those spaces, and along with Carrier Park, get the most programming activity. But yes, any space within our system, we're open to sitting down with local organizations, nonprofits, that talk about what other programming opportunities look like for a specific space.
I guess last major topic I want to talk about is sports. We're heading into spring season. There'll be summer. Are we inundated with city soccer leagues, softball leagues, baseball leagues? What does the city oversee in terms of summer sports and spring sports?
So most of the sport activity here in Asheville is operated through nonprofits. So in terms of soccer, we know ABYSA. They're the go-to organization that's offering soccer at both the competition level as well as the rec level. We have 3 different Little League associations that are managing baseball, softball, t-ball here in the area. We do fall ball. We do flag football. We do a number of adult volleyball leagues through Asheville Parks and Rec system.
And with Asheville's growing population, are you seeing more demand for these services?
Yes, especially the adult services. We hear often we want more time in centers. We would like to utilize more spaces. That's something that's been a challenge. Our flag football league has grown tremendously, and it's becoming a challenge to try to find space that satisfy all of those user groups.
Yeah, it seems like an undercurrent in this conversation is space. And from what I'm hearing from you is the likelihood of generating more space for any particular need is little to none, and that we have to make use of what we have and make the optimal use of what we have. Am I reading that correctly?
We'll see. We'll see. Yes, our focus is on maintaining what we currently have. It doesn't mean that there isn't room for anything that's new. It's just that our primary attention and focus right now is on maintaining our current assets.
So you have the comprehensive plan coming around the corner. How would you advise or suggest for people living in the city to best engage with what you're doing in Parks and Rec? Is there a role for everyday people to play?
Oh, absolutely. The feedback that we get from citizens is the guiding factor, right? It's part of the equation of what investment, what programs we offer, how we make decisions on the future of Asheville Parks and Rec. So yeah, we're in phase 2 now. We have a couple of public engagement sessions scheduled this month, March 27th, 28th. I would encourage people to go to recreateasheville.com. Check out the website. There's more information on other ways they can get involved. There'll be another survey that citizens can take to hear where we are right now, kind of some of the things that have risen to the top, and provide some additional feedback on the Asheville Parks and Rec system and our future. I think the Recreate Asheville thing is our big thing right now. This is a guiding document that we're going to be using certainly for the next 10 years. The opportunity to hear back from as many citizens from different areas of the city is something that we're always pushing out. And even if you don't use the system, we want to hear why, so we can figure out how we can better engage with citizens at all levels of their recreation journeys.
I want to thank my guest today, D. Tyrell McGirt, Director of Asheville's Parks and Recreation Department. Our conversation happened at the BB Theater in downtown Asheville, which comes to me courtesy of the Asheville Contemporary Dance Theater and Susan and Giles Collard. If you value the Overlook's place in Asheville's media landscape, please consider joining dozens of others who are supporting the show through my Patreon crowdfunding page. Become a member for as little as $5 a month. Visit patreon.com/The Overlook Podcast. Our First Look newsletter gives you just a handful of daily headlines from around the local media landscape to get you on your morning. We also have a weekly newsletter devoted to all things The Overlook that hits you every Friday. Both are free and available at podavl.com/newsletter. The theme song for The Overlook, Maker's Song, comes to us courtesy of the Asheville duo The Resonant Rogues. The Overlook is a production of Podcast Asheville. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on any social media channel at AVL Overlook. And I'll see you on the next episode of The Overlook with Matt Peiken. Hey everyone, Matt Peiken here from The Overlook, and I'll get back to my conversation in just a moment. But I'm asking you, the listener, yes, you listening this very moment, is The Overlook making a difference in your connection to Asheville? Do you know more about what makes this city tick and where we're struggling? If you had to give up 1 cup of coffee every month to do your part to keep this show going, would you step up? If you answered yes to any of that, and I really hope you did, please join dozens of other listeners by supporting The Overlook with Matt Peiken through my Patreon campaign by giving just $5 a month. Give at higher levels and you'll earn free tickets to my live podcasting events. Your support means the world to me and helps keep this show free for anyone to hear. Go to patreon.com/The Overlook Podcast.